Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining our live, and we're going to get started immediately. So, welcome to Talking Mental with RB series. This is basically a monthly series that we pick a topic that is related to mental health, and we get a professional to speak on it each month. So, this month we are going to be talking about grief and mental health. And with me to do justice to this very important topic, which is not often talked about, is Coach Bashirat Abdulwahab. She is a grief recovery therapist and humanitarian, a 4 times author, and the founder of the Grief Recovery Hub. And I'm so honored that she's here because the first time I tried doing something like this 2 years ago, she was my guest and she really dropped a lot of gems then. And it's only right that I bring her again to share her knowledge with all of us. So yeah, you can't see myself. Can you see my face now? I think the network. Can you see my face now?
Let's go on. They can hear you. I can hear you as well.
Okay.
Let's just go on.
Okay.
I don't know.
I think the network
Maybe
is
it's
very
just my
bad.
outside.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I would like to welcome Coach Bashira on the stage. Thank you very much for honoring our invite. Thank you very much.
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah, again.
okay. So
So
we're
what's
going to
going
get
on?
started now. Okay, so I'm going to be I'll start by asking the first question, and which is the basis of why we are here, and that is what is grief. Now, I know a lot of people would have their own different definition of what grief is, but from a grief recovery therapist perspective, what is grief?
Simply put, grief is the way that you respond to loss. And this response is not fixed. This response is not something in stone for everyone. This response might not be the same for everyone that experiences loss, but it is the way by which people who have experienced loss respond to the loss that they experienced. And I think that's just the layman way to put it, right? And how Lady A would respond to the loss of her dad will literally be different from how Lady B would do the same, and how Mr. A would respond to the loss of his mother would differ from the way that Mr. B would respond to the loss of his mother. So, but however way that they respond, or however way that they're reacting, and how they're processing it is literally what grief is.
Okay, thank you very much for that definition. Because I think I think a lot of people need to understand that grief is not one way thing. It's not a one way thing. How someone will respond to something is different from how another person will respond to something, and so you don't end up hearing sentence like, "Okay, when this thing happened to me, I did not cry as much as this," that kind of thing. So yes, that's a very good definition. Thank you for that. So my next question, how does grief affect or impact our mental health? And how can it manifest, like when it impacts our mental health, in what way can it manifest? In what way are we going to see that, okay, this grief is actually having an impact on our mental health?
In different ways for different people again. But one of the very popular ways is that you find a lot of people they experience some shock, and they also find themselves in some form of denial as a result of the loss that they experience. That's okay. But how literally does this, all of it, the loss, the shock, the denial, all of everything that you will be going through affects your mental health? You find some people becoming depressed as a result of the loss. You find some people struggling with their memory as a result of the loss. We find some people being traumatized, again, depending on the situations or the scenarios around the loss that they have experienced. So we can say shock, denial, memory impairment, depression, trauma are some of the ways by which grief can affect the mental health of bereaved persons.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. It's very, yeah, those things that you said, like really, when grief gets to a point, it just starts showing up in like depression and those things that you said, which is, and that's how like we know that okay, grief and mental health actually has a link in a way. So yes, my next question, as a grief therapist, what would you say, when does the process of grieving calls for alarm? Because I understand that we grieve for different situations, and not every grieving needs to escalate to the point whereby you ask for help. So, but then for an individual, at what point should they say that okay, it's like this is going beyond normal, I need to see someone to help me?
Yeah, I think one of the scenarios or situations that a rich person can find themselves in is when they are actually stuck in the denial stage and they are unable to move past that, meaning that it still feels like a dream and they're asking themselves, is this true or is this not true? And if this is going on for too long, even after, say, the funeral, after all the perhaps maybe traditional mourning periods that people do and all of that, if this is still going on and they still feel like it is not true, this loss has not happened. This person could perhaps still be alive, or perhaps they're just going to wake up and get out of their grave, then I think that the person needs to get help. Again, when the grief is not progressing, it is possible that you have gone through the denial stage and you're stuck in and you're depressed at some point, and you're not able to move past the depression because you don't even know how to process it, and you're wondering why are you depressed. Again, if you're stuck in this situation, then you need help. Now, if the loss is causing you some form of trauma, or the scenarios around the loss is also caused you some form of trauma, then you need to get help as well. So these are, again, the three very important scenarios, but there are more, depending on the difference in loss experiences. But again, these are the ones that I would like to share, and these are the ones that are perhaps very, very prevalent, especially for people who have experienced loss.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Before I ask the next question, I think I want to like something like a comment and a clarification. So when we say grief, I don't know, is it only right that we associate it to when we lose someone, or can we also experience grief when we lose something? Because like personally, I think when maybe for example, okay, this might sound silly, but then maybe I lose my data, maybe my computer data. I think there will be a period of me like, okay, especially when I know that it's unrecoverable, like I can't recover them again. I kind of like feel sad and like kind of mourn the loss. So I don't know, in that situation too, can it also be that someone is grieving? Must it always be associated with human beings?
Oh, grief actually cuts across different forms of losses, and people can experience grief for different forms of losses. For instance, like you said, you lost data, information, work that you have done over a very long period of time. It hurts, except that it might not be as complicated as the loss of a human being. um there is also the loss of pets, and that really does suck. Like, we have people who have developed a very, very beautiful relationship with their pets, and when they lost their pets, it really does feel very sad. And I know people who cry for the loss of their pets. I've personally grieved the loss of a cat before, so I understand what it means that to be grieving as a result of the loss of a pet, right? Again, there are other kinds of losses. In fact, organizational losses, even miscarriage falls within this category of losses that people grieve for. The loss of property, maybe you made an investment and then you lost huge sum of money. So many, there. they're everywhere. It's in different kinds of losses that people can actually grieve, and not just when perhaps you lost a loved one, you lost your mama or your sibling or your friend, even in loss of job or means of livelihood. And even for people who have experienced long-term illnesses like terminal illnesses like cancer, kidney diseases that has changed them. You find that when these people come out of the illnesses, meaning that they finally get well, you find that they struggle to accept their new self. And that in itself is a form of grief. So we do not limit grief to only the death of human beings. Grief indeed does cut across all forms of forces.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. I
I
mean,
wish you
a lot of
guys
people
too.
would just like assume like me to like, okay, human. Okay, okay, so my next question, what role do you think social support plays in the grieving process, and how can we best support a friend or a loved one who is grieving? Now, I think these are two questions in one. How does social support help when someone is grieving? And also, as an individual, how can we help people who are grieving? Because I think recently there has been issue about, okay, how best can you comfort someone that is grieving? Sometimes some people end up thinking they want to comfort the person. They end up saying things that sound so insensitive. So I think it's very important that people know how they can be of help to people who they want to offer comfort or support to.
Yes, yes. Support from perhaps your people from the mosque, from the church, support from your family, but it has to be support from the right people, because like you've said, at the end of the day, people would mess up the whole thing because they're trying to support you. They don't know the right words to say or the right things to do to help you in those situations. So I'm going to recall, for instance, when I lost my first spouse in 2015, the kind of support that I got was that my father's aunt, one of my father's aunt's relatives, came to stay with me for quite a while. And that presence was really important and pivotal to my healing journey. It was very important for me that I had someone like her, elderly, helpful, present, who helped me through the journey. So what kind of ways can we support our loved ones, our friends, or anyone at all who is around us who has experienced some form of loss? I think the first thing is to show up and let them know that you're here, whatever that they need. And sometimes they might not be able to communicate exactly what their needs are, but then you can see and decipher it. And you're looking at them and you're like, you've not had a meal today. Then make them a meal, bring the meal over. Whatever you feel that they need in order for them to carry on, then those are the kind of support you want to give them. Send them fruit baskets, sit with them, and just allow them to talk all about their loss and experience without you having to talk them out of it. Be a shoulder that they can lean on and cry on. Ask them, how can I be of support to you today? Encourage them to have their baths, to take care of themselves. Encourage them to pick up some things, just do something, encourage them to leave, because it can be very difficult. Sometimes it feels like the whole world has stopped, but in actual reality, the world has not stopped, except that your world has stopped. Your world has stopped because of what you're going through. And so coming to terms with the reality that the whole world has not stopped and everyone is moving forward. Again, people expect that to just move on. So I think, yeah, those are the ways by which you can, offer support to them. Be present, like I said, show up, ask them, how can I support you? How can I be of help? Ask them, do you need anything today? To know that they at that time, and yeah, the list is endless, really.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I really hope it's going to be useful for people. I mean, this video is going to be on replay, so people can check it out if they want to learn more about the issue of grief and how they can support people. It's very, very important to know how you can support someone that is grieving. And also, I think in addition to what Coach Bashir has said, I also say that you shouldn't. I think that people should stop telling people should stop telling people not to cry, or not to grieve, or not to mourn. So like you go to someone that lost someone dear to them and you're saying things like, okay, stop crying, don't cry. Like, I don't know what do you now want the person to do if the person does not cry? Just let I feel like people should let people cry it out rather than telling people don't cry. I know people might come off as being helpful or being supportive when they say don't cry, but in a way I think it does more harm than good. I don't know. What do you think about that? Like telling people not to cry.
I think that, one of the misconceptions about this whole thing is people feel like because you're crying, because you feel sad, then you don't have faith, especially in our culture,
True,
Nigeria,
true.
very cultural Nigeria. They feel like it's because you don't have faith in God. They feel like it's because, you're mad, you're not happy with God, or you're questioning God's ordaining. That in the reverse is the case. It's not actually true that it is because people don't have faith and that is why they're crying. It's just because they're humans. They're sad and that's it. They're sad and that's it. And just as anyone who is sad as a result of whatever that has happened to them, something that has happened to them that makes them sad, they're just being sad and expressing being sad by crying. And so it is not a form of weakness to cry. Actually is one of the ways that can even help you to heal, because it helps you to let it out instead of bottling it all up. So yes, I think those are one of the misconceptions really. People feel like at some point you should stop crying. People feel at some point it should not be painful anymore. It should not hurt anymore. People feel people will tell you, people think that it is just easy to just move on. They feel like you can just move on from the experience. Again, people think that it is easy and they think that everything will be just fine. And they want to talk you all out of it instead of them to allow you to honor the one that you have lost. You find that people want to even talk about the person they've loved, and then they're like, no, you don't, you shouldn't talk about the person. And this someone that perhaps is an integral part of your life, was an integral part of your life, is still, because you would still see so many things that remind you of them in your life, in your homes, and then they tell you to forget about the person. Again, those are the issues that and misconceptions really that come up, and people don't really move on from these experiences, but they can move forward with their lives. They can start to pick up their lives one day at a time, even as they're grieving. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Speaking about misconceptions, that's like one misconception, and my next question is also regarding misconceptions. So, as a grief recovery therapist, which for me I think it's like a refuge, like it's not a field where many people are in. I mean, I think a lot of people are just like discovering that that field actually exists, grief therapy. So, what are
I think it's
misconceptions
like
or okay? So I said, speaking about misconceptions, for someone who is a grief therapist like you, grief therapist, and grief therapy is like a rare field, like it's something that is not yet known, it's not like a popular thing yet. What are other misconceptions concerning grief and mental health that you've encountered in the process of your work?
I think people think that they will just be just fine and they don't need help. And yeah, I thought so too, several years ago. So, and it's almost 9 years, about 9 years back, I thought so too, but I was wrong, right? People think they can just deal with it. Again, with people who have experienced maybe multiple losses and they feel like maybe they're used to losing their loved ones, I think I I really did fail in that category of people who felt like, well, I'm used to this anyway, so let's just rough it and keep going. Let's just rough it and keep doing life until God calls, you know. But I was wrong. So again, people feel like it's just easy. You can just move on after some time because again, everybody has moved on, and you're wondering why are you still stuck? Why are you still here? We have gone. We have gone on. But yeah, it's difficult to go on. So, but they can move forward, right? They can take their lives one day at a time. They can start to get some help that they
Okay.
need, and I think that those are the important things.
Okay. Thank you very much. So my next question, as the grief therapist, what are tips that you would recommend to people for processing grief in an healthy way? And I added healthy way because when people process grief, I think they mostly do it the unhealthy way. So from a therapist point of view, what are the healthy ways that when maybe you encounter a loss, how you should process that grief?
Okay, whatever I will share is just generic because again, everyone would have
Yeah.
to figure out what works for them. But the most important thing when it
True,
comes to grief
true.
is moving from a place of denial to a place of acceptance. Moving from a place of denial
Okay.
to a place of acceptance. Because what you accept, you get to do something about. What you deny, you don't get to do something about it. So when you come to terms with the reality of the loss that you have experienced, then you can start to think, what do I need to do to move on with my life today? Despite this loss and the grief, because it can feel like the whole world is stopped. But like I said earlier, the world is moving on. It is your world that perhaps has stopped. And you have to pick up because again, no matter how long you decide to take, time is not going to wait for you. But again, you have to do this at your own pace, and you don't want anybody to rush you through the process. In fact, you do not as well want to rush yourself through the process, right? You need to give yourself ample time to process the loss. So what can you start to do with yourself? Like I said, when you move from a place of denial to acceptance, then you can start to come to terms with the reality of the loss. And that's the most important thing, because once you come to terms with it, what happens is that yeah, it still sucks, but you know that it is true. Yes, it still sucks, and some days you're going to cry yourself to, but you know that tomorrow morning you're going to wake up and you're going to do whatever needs to be done to carry on with life. Yes, your life, you will not have to do your life without your loved one, but again, it does not mean that you will stop doing life without help. So, again, it's important that people pick up self-help activities, read self-help books that can really help them put things into perspective. Of course, a series of perhaps maybe, I don't know how many, if there are enough of them, but I know there are books and I know that there are, videos here and there. And I know that whatever faith that you practice, you can also find some form of support in your scripture, right?
Yeah.
I find a lot of support in scripture. You can find a lot of it of support, of course, talking to your religious leader as well. And of course, people that you feel can really understand what you're going through. But most importantly, you want to really talk to a professional so that you can figure out what works for you, how best you want to cope. Because again, at the end of the day, it is not a one size fits all kind of thing. Everybody would need to find a way that works for them, and they just need to do it. Again, you can get yourself involved in activities that give you joy. But if you're experiencing depression and grief, it is most likely that those things that give you joy no longer give you joy, right? So again, these are where you would have to speak to a professional when you're starting to feel depressed or there is trauma attached to it. Because if your life is starting to feel joyless and you're not finding anything at all, again, these situations can make you start to feel guilty, right? Like maybe you're watching a program, a
Yeah.
TV program, and something makes you laugh, and then you're laughing and then you catch yourself and be like, am I supposed to be laughing? Again, this is how grief shows up saying, I'm not supposed to be laughing, right? But again, you deserve to laugh. Grief and joy can coexist, right? If something
Yeah.
happens that makes you laugh, that gives your heart joy, please be joyful and merry even as you grieve, right? So those are, again, these are just some, yeah, things, and I hope they help someone out there.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'm definitely going to highlight the part of moving from denial to acceptance, because just like in mental health, if you are not, if you've not accepted that you're actually going through something, you won't get help. You won't look for how to help yourself. So yes, denial to acceptance, the journey from denial to acceptance is very, very important. Thank you very much for that. And now, so let's move a bit to your profession as a grief therapist. Now, as I said earlier, grief therapy is a new thing. I mean, you hear people talk about other coaches, but then you rarely hear grief coaching or grief related anything. But then you are a grief coach and a grief recovery therapist. What role does professional grief support your profession play in during the period of loss to transition? And I'm asking this because a lot of people would want to, they've heard all this, but then they'll still be like, okay, why should I reach out to a grief coach? So if you can just like highlight the things that a grief coach will do to you or do for you when you contact them in the period of loss. So yeah, I don't know, did you get my
Okay,
question?
I get
Okay.
it. Okay, so as a
Yeah.
grief therapist, there's a lot I can do for you. Number one is I can hold space for you, right? I can hold space for you. I can offer support to you, but not just you, also your family. In the work that we do, we realize that the grief affects not just one person, but of course several other people. And so we even offer family grief therapy sessions and not just individual one-on-one sessions. We offer a series of other group therapies as well that we do, and we have a support circle or a community whereby we have people who experience different kinds of losses, and we all just come together. We hold virtual support circles, we hold physical ones, and it's been quite amazing because people find joy in spaces where everyone is talking about something similar. Everyone kind of understand or have experienced a kind of pain that perhaps they will not be able to share with just anybody because they don't understand, again, because they have not experienced that kind of pain. Again, we offer mental health support services. Your mental health can be disrupted as a result of the loss that you're going through. Um, offer funeral support services as well. We offer all kinds of services. But most importantly is that, one, move you from a place of shock and denial to a place of acceptance. Two, we help you to really come to terms with the reality of your loss. Three, we help you design a coping mechanism for you so it's a journey towards from being in shock to denial to acceptance to coming to realities of the loss. And most importantly, we also help you to we empower you so that you can live with the reality of these losses. Now, because loss comes with its own form of reality. For instance, for someone who has lost a spouse, you can bet that, of course, their life has changed. The life that they know has changed. I can share from my own experience because I didn't used to pick any bill. I didn't know the way to the fuel station or the gas station. So many things were being done for me, of course, by my very loving spouse. May Allah have mercy on him. But
Mhm.
I had to start doing all of those things, right? Now,
Yeah.
queuing at the gas station and, getting the generator service, paying bills, heavy bills, and all of that. So your life is going to change. And those realities, again, I really want to make the whole journey very tough because where do you even start from? And if you're not getting a lot of support, then it can be really tough, very, very tough.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I'm sure a lot of people and question has been answered. And so also to anyone watching this video, if you want, you can gift your loved one or your friend a grief coaching session with a grief therapist. And I mean, our guest speaker here has Grief Recovery Hub, where they do all the things that she just talked about. I'll give her, before I ask my last question, kindly talk to us about what Grief Recovery Hub does, which I think is one of the first of its kind in Nigeria. Yeah. So yeah, what does Grief Recovery Hub does?
Well, literally anything around grief, whatever comes up as a result of loss is what we do, from grief recovery support circles to grief therapy sessions to grief education and awareness and funeral support services, and all of that, physically, virtually, and all of that. So you can check out Grief Recovery Hub NG on IG. If you need our help, need our services, you can send an email to the grh01@gmail.com. The grh01@gmail.com. We also have our monthly grief support circle holding virtually tonight at 8:30 p.m. via our Telegram community. If you check out griefrecoveryhub.ng, Grief Recovery Hub NG, you will be able to find the link to join the virtual circle. It was only at 8:30 p.m. Nigerian time. Yeah, I think pretty much that's summarily what we do.
That's very nice. So yes, my last question. So for anyone out there who is willing to also become a grief coach or a grief counselor, for you, what has been your most rewarding aspect of your work? Because I think some people might find it overwhelming and it might make them reluctant to want to become one. But what has been that most spectacular, rewarding, beautiful moment from your work that has made you feel like, okay, yes, you're actually doing something is that means a lot? I know, yes, you help people recover from grief, but then there must be something else that would want to make someone else want to become a grief coach.
Oh wow. I don't know how exactly to answer this question, because again, everybody has got to have a strong why before they venture
Yeah,
into
yeah,
anything.
true.
So for me, my why is strong, and so I ventured into this, and I'm very careful again because I'm remarried now. I'm very careful not to portray this widow thing. Yeah, I used to be one, but I am no longer one. So again, like I say, you need to have a strong why. Honestly, why do you want to become one? I think that's the most important thing. And when you figure out that strong why, you can start to look at who are the people that I need to serve and how am I going to serve them. But again, it's so important that you get trained, because experience is not enough. I have experience, like truckload of experiences. But I know that my experience and my story alone is not enough. I'm not just going to sit in a group therapy session and tell you all about my experiences. Like, imagine I didn't have anything tangible to say today. I'll literally just be narrating my experience from 1999, or how many years since I started experiencing major losses in my life, when I lost my mom, my sister, and my aunt. I would just literally start narrating that experience and boring you with a lot of sad stuff, right? But when you get educated, trained, certified, and equipped to do this, the way that you handle it is different. So if, for instance, you feel like this is an area you want to branch into, the most important thing is to get educated, get trained, and get trained so that you can help people in a very professional way. There are ethics of the profession, there are ethics of therapy, of coaching, of counseling. Again, whatever you're doing, you need to do it by that. But there is a business side as well, and so all of these things you would need to learn. Don't just jump into it, and because you have experience, you have experience that it really does not work in that way. And if there is anyone who would want to venture into this, please, you're most welcome. We need more people to do this work. It's hard work. It's not easy, but we need more people who can do it. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, this is not only a very informative session, also very educative, and it's also like a call for, okay, we need more grief coaches. So yes, thank you very much. We're coming to the end of the session. I don't know if anyone has questions, but pending when if anyone has questions that you can drop in the comment section. So our guest speaker, I don't know if you have one or two things to say, like maybe anything I didn't ask and you'd like to say to people out there, maybe people dealing with grief or just generally.
I think that we've pretty said it all. I think one thing anyone who is bereaved or going through grief, just they should remember that it's a phase. It's and loss is like that constant in life. We are all mortal beings, and so coming to terms with that alone can make your journey a bit lighter. That we are all just, you know, in waiting. Everyone's just waiting for their time appointed, which no one knows except God. And so, again, I feel like loss should be a motivation to want to live our best lives. It should be a motivation to want to live good life, to want to leave a very good legacy behind. It should be that for you, for me as well. It's first a reminder for me before it is for anyone else. Grief is unsettling, loss is unsettling, but it is not impossible to heal from these things. It is not impossible to pick up your life even after great losses and live your best life yet. So it is very possible. And if you ever need help, you know, you can always reach out. He can always reach out. There is help.
Thank you, thank you. And to anyone watching this, know that our guest speaker also has books that she has written. She has, I think, 3 to 4 books. I think one is on how to write your book, but then the remaining 3 are related to grief, loss, and they are very, very educative and informative. So if you want to buy or purchase any copy of our book, you just have to reach out to her and get a copy, and I promise you, you won't regret it. So yes, I think we've come to the end of today's program, and I think we don't have any questions. But if you watch this video and you have questions, all you need to do is to message our guest speaker to send an email to her. I'll send an email to me, and I'll get the question across to her definitely. So yeah, thank you to everyone who's watching this and who's going to watch this after now. And thank you so much to our guest speaker. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for always honoring my invite whenever I call upon you. I pray that God answers all your prayers and your heart desires and grants your heart desires too. And thank you for doing the work you do. It's very important, very, very, very important. And I mean, it's been a long way coming, and so yeah, I admire what you do. I've seen you from when we were with Manny together and then to where you are now, and it's been a journey, and I'm so happy for you, and I can't wait to see what you do next and what you do with Grief Recovery Hub. And I don't think I've even said congratulations on opening Grief Recovery Hub. It's a milestone, and I'm so happy for you. So yeah, that brings us to the end of today's live. There was a bit technical issues at the beginning, but we were able to end up doing this session. So yes, thank you to everyone. Thank you to our guest speaker, and this will be the end of the session. There's going to be a replay. It's going to be on replay, and you can watch it anytime you like. So yeah, thank you everyone, and have a wonderful day ahead.